Hey guys, Boris from BK Forex. Welcome to our Forex Weekly Technicals for 12/2, 12/7. Can cable continue to climb? As always, trading foreign exchange and margin carries a high level of responsibility for investors. I ask you to discover very carefully to understand all the risks of trading margin and to seek advice from an independent financial advisor if you have any doubts. Well, the moving cable certainly was very, very powerful. Let me just pull up the chart here. And continues to be so even as we open up Asia here. We're right back fresh to fresh yearly highs already. Took out the 64s in early Asia, squeezed all the way out to 64.40s, and now pretty much have 65 in view as all systems go. Cable just continues to have a parabolic climb after it cleared all of this major resistance at the 63 level. Doesn't really have, if we have to go to the weekly charts, doesn't really have any significant resistance until we get to the 65, 66 level, which is definitely going to be much more problematic for the pair to clear. But from here to the top of that range is another 150 points, and it could easily move through that level before it finally finds some point of exhaustion. It's certainly been a very, very powerful move, both on the weeklies and the dailies. A move you have to respect, and for the time being, the path of least resistance is certainly to the upside in cable. And that, of course, means that the whole cable complex is doing very, very well. So you have to look at cable Swiss, which is having a relatively decent move. Still not to this is the weekly high, so it's a little bit. Daily highs are definitely above the day's highs. The cable yen has really been the big mover. Took out the 65, 66s, and now today the 68. Possible here, if we go to 66 on cable, we certainly can go to 170 on cable yen. That seems to be the favorite pair of everybody who's trading cable momentum for the time being. And euro pound, of course, trading to the downside. Where's my euro pound? Here it is. As we make fresh, we really broke through the fresh lows here at 83. In fact, the real big trade at the beginning of Asia today was this trip of the 8,300 stops in the euro pound, which pushed cable through the 64.40s, kept euro capped at 3,600. Having said this, though, euro pound is one of those kind of pairs that likes to make fresh lows and then retrace. So it's quite possible here that we could have a rebalancing as the day continues, maybe even as the week continues, and we could come back towards the 83s, which brings us now to the euro, which still, despite the fact that it's lagging cable and finding obviously very, very choppy resistance at this 36 level, still looks relatively well bid. And the fact if we can clear, if we sort of can rebalance the euro pound composition here, and we can clear the 36.25 level, it opens up the run all the way back out to the 37s and really puts euro back up into a test of the yearly highs of the 38s. So euro may be down, but definitely not out. It looks relatively well bid here, and it could potentially definitely recover. As long as we can take out the 36.25s, it puts us on a much healthier path towards the 3700 as the day continues. If we can't muster up that strength, then the move back down takes us to 35 on the support level. Cable, as far as support, by the way, we haven't even talked about a downside because it's been such an upward side. The first level of support obviously is 63, and then the next level of support was 63, which was former resistance, now becomes support. And then beyond that is, of course, 62 as a deeper support for cable if it begins to correct and offer chances to buy on a dip. Yen had a nice big move through the 105 50s, but now it seems to be doing this tap dance where we move up, move down, move up, move down. So that we took out the 102 50s, now we seem to be correcting, and it may want to probably retest the 102 support level before we can move up higher. Yen is going to be really driven very much by what happens in U.S. data this week. Of course, we have the NFPs at the end of the week. If that turns out to be very positive, then we have a very perfect constellation of fundamental technical factors to push us all the way out to the yearly highs at 103.50. If it turns out to be negative, we could have a flame out over here to set a lower high, which could push us all the way down to the perhaps even as low as 101s on any kind of a corrected move. So yen is very much the key, but for now it seems to be very quiet as we kind of get ready for the week in terms of trading. And Aussie has been holding out support here at this 91 level that we talked about. Actually, 90.50 was the big support. It kind of had 3 days. We talked about this idea of 3 days of no forward movement, sort of failure to follow through. And the failure to follow through tends to lead to nice big reversals. So in this case, we have even a gap open, as a matter of fact, because of the better than expected Chinese PMI data. And we're holding now above the 91.30s. 91 150 definitely in view as a potential trade to the upside to squeeze the shorts even further, especially if the gap does not get filled. One of the more interesting things here that could happen is if we have a runaway gap, that is, if the gap doesn't get filled today, the trade could go all the way out to 9200s. As despite all of the rhetoric by the RBA, the news on the ground seems to be relatively positive on the Australian economy. And as long as the news on the ground is relatively positive, it's going to be very difficult for the RBA to do anything about the appreciating currency. So the longs are going to continue to try to press it to the upside. And furthermore, this, of course, has also been very, very decent support prior here, this 91 level, 90, 50, 91. And it seems to be holding up right now on a technical basis. So we'll see how well it goes. It does need to clear today, this 91.50. If we can clear that today, that puts us in a much more positive construct and a push towards 92s as the week progresses. On the crosses, of course, pound yen is the dominant cross right now, and that's a big view towards 170 if pound can kind of extend its move. Euro yen is stalling a little bit here, mainly because we have a little bit of yen correction, and of course the euro is stalling out at this 36 level. And the other big cross last week that got a lot of attention was this Aussie Kiwi break of the 11200, which was a big support level. But here again, as you can see, it broke the 11200 and then held the 11100. And the fact that Aussie now is starting to come back, this was something that we talked about earlier last week also. The Aussie coming back on the crosses. Very much premature on my part last week in terms of pointing this out, but it may finally be a time. I'm looking to just see if I can find this. Here's the Euro Aussie. May finally be the time to consider this failure. Here it is. We talked about the idea that 150 could be a failure, a triple top failure here, and it seems to be confirming that point here for the time being. So very much worth watching here. Certainly Euro Aussie shorting at the 150 gave you a very, very decent risk reward ratio. Coming back down now towards the 48s, the test is probably going to be the 4800. That's going to be the initial support for the Euro Aussie correction to the downside. But those who were brave enough to kind of stand in front of a runaway train, for the time being, definitely got rewarded by basically being short 150 against, I guess the move that now is definitely coming back. Those who got in a little early, that was unfortunate because if you were short 48, you certainly had to endure a further squeeze all the way up to 150s before now you're starting to even out your positions. But either way, I think Euro Aussie coming back on the crosses against the Euro certainly. Pound Aussie, let's just pull that up. I think I have to do this manually. Pound Aussie is a different kettle of fish here. Let me just pull this up because of the strength of the pound. But if pound does correct, this is another one of those kind of crosses. See, so here's the pound Aussie 180 seems to be the flame out level here. What's the high here? I believe it's just one second. I just want an information window. So the high here is 80.60, and that could be the key level here, against which you could take a short on a potential topping out formation. This would be really a trade on both the fact that cable could correct a little bit off its highs, that Aussie now begins to strengthen. So about 100 points away from a stop here at these levels seems to be a relatively decent risk reward ratio on a pound Aussie, which moves 200-300 points a day. Anyways, potential correction here to 77.50 on a topping formation. A break above, of course, all systems are off, and it can go all the way up to 182 before it kind of peters out again. So that's how the week shapes up. A lot of very interesting early week moves. Pound definitely leading the way. Pound crosses are the key focus for everything that's going on. But the secondary story here is, I think, the underlying evening out, if not the strengthening, but at least sort of the bottoming out of the Aussie, and the Aussie as a potential trade on the crosses, also setting up for the week. Wishing you guys the best of luck and the best of trading. This is Boris Schlossberg for BK Forex. I'll see you guys on tomorrow as the week takes full form. The holiday in the US is over, and the trading is definitely getting started. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.